tired of being the whiner who moaned about money, and joined in. Now there was barely enough cash for another season in the tropics. We'd have to go home and earn some more. It was a prospect neither of us looked forward to. "We'd better have a good breakfast. We won't feel like eating once we're into the job." Danny picked up the cast-iron griddle and set it on top of the propane burners we hung on the big Dickinson stove when we set out for the tropics. I topped up my coffee and went out on deck to check the weather. We were 10 miles upriver in New Zealand's North Island, moored fore and aft on pilings in Whangarei Town Basin with a couple of hundred other yachts, many of them offshore cruisers. Most of us had followed the same tracks through Tonga and Fiji and had a nodding acquaintance. Tied up next to us on the port side was a 40-foot American registered Valiant, and Rachel and I exchanged friendly good mornings from our respective cockpits. She was minding the boat while her boyfriend was back in Silicon Valley topping up the cruising kitty. We'd become friendly with her, Danny more so than me. Our hulls were barely 5 feet apart, and I had felt the sway of Arrow many a late night and early morning as Danny swung across and back. Women responded to Danny like iron filings to a magnet, and he was never one for resisting the natural laws. It was a fine morning, cool and overcast, with just enough breeze to crank over the wind generator hanging on the mizzenmast and give us enough amps to run the electrics and fridge without having to start the engine. We had done a costly refit in Tahiti 2 years back after we lost our rig when we were driven over the reef in Tuamotus, but we hadn't touched the diesel, an old Perkins 4108 with the Lucas Electrics, ill-tempered and flighty, but never quite reaching the point where it had to be replaced. We had a perverse fondness for it, apart from the serious money it would take to replace it with a new one. We tried to use it as little as possible, and then only when it would have been dangerous not to. "Here, eat up." From the galley, Danny passed up a plate of bacon and eggs and came up on deck to join me. He gave a reserved greeting to Rachel, and she responded equally sedately. The rascals. "Seen Sinbad this morning?" "No, but I felt a slight list around 5 o'clock this morning," I said. "It must have been him." Danny chose to ignore it. "Is it Mafia Day today?" "Yes. Likely see Basil in another hour or so." The New Zealand Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry was responsible for defending the shores of their country from the depredations of foreign pets. You were not allowed to land an animal on shore until it had been in quarantine for 6 months, under pain of death for the beast, and the loss of a large bond by its owner. In addition, there was a bi-weekly inspection of all boats with pets confined on board. The inspector rowed among the moored fleet, and the owners would bring their pets on deck for his contemplation, the process often accompanied by acrimony on both sides. Since it was their country, they got to make the rules, and they widely publicized their aversion to foreign pets. If you don't like it, don't land here. Danny and I had no problem with any of this. Unfortunately, Sinbad did. Sinbad was our ship's dog, 165 pounds of ugly and muscle. He was devoted to Danny and barely tolerated me, although he did save my life once. We picked him up in the port of Santa Barbara on our maiden passage down the west coast, and he remained with us ever since. Sinbad grew up on an atoll in the Tuamotus, a free-running village dog belonging to no one, and fed himself for the most part by catching fish. The cruisers loved to watch him working the shallow edge of a lagoon, springing through the water in high, stiff-legged leaps with his head on a swivel, then suddenly pouncing to emerge with a fish captured in his jaws. They were less thrilled when he devoured one of the seabirds he varied his diet with. Sinbad was befriended by an American single-hander who stopped off at the remote island of Ahey in the Tuamotus, and when the cruiser departed he took the dog with him. When the sailor's voyage ended in Santa Barbara 2 years later, he deposited Sinbad with the local SPCA, and that is where Danny's grandfather, Joseph, had found him and brought him aboard 2 years previously. He was unquestionably the ugliest dog I have ever seen. Outsized head, with yellow staring eyes above a flat, brutal face, with something of the wolf in it. His neck was massive, the skin loose and rumpled above powerful shoulders that ran down to a narrow, skinny rump and short, muscular hind legs, with broad, thickly furred feet that propelled him through the water at surprising speed. His tail was thin, mangy, and rat-like, and had been docked by the teeth of a shark. Another attack...